Thank you for that. I do have a handout, but I don't have enough, so I'm going to need you to pass it around if it's all right. What it does is just shows the current state of social media as we talk. So I'm going to start it now. It's just worth looking at every now and then. Just see how many things have been updated while we're actually going through this. So yeah, I work with the innovation team at Deloitte, and my role is primarily internal, and it's my job. Well, when I was hired, the director that hired me said, "It's your job to make sure that every day you do something that could cost you your job," which I took as a personal challenge. Yesterday, I was uploading a particular video to YouTube, had me called in front of the internal communication manager, serious ticking off. But about, what is it now, 2008, so 5 years ago, I worked in an accounting firm and actually can't count at all. 5 years ago now, I started with one of my colleagues, the @GreenDot Twitter feed, because I've been bouncing up and down saying for weeks, months, we have to get on Twitter, we have to get on Twitter. And she kept saying, yes, I'm on now, yes, I'm on now. Finally said, okay, all right, let's go with this. So we did the right thing. We created a month's worth of tweets, what we'd say. We went around the business and we asked people what they thought, what should be said. Is there any information they'd like to get out about life at Deloitte? And we sent that off through to the risk team, through the legal, got everyone to look at it. Okay, so that's great, you can start it. The Deloitte logo has a little green dot at the end, which is why the @_green dot. We're a bit green dot crazy and very proud of our green dot. And it was a very exciting moment. We finally launched and said, okay, here we go, we're out of the space. About 3 months into it, we got a call from the CEO asking us to come up and see him in the office. Now, Gibbs, with our CEO, is a South African guy. He's about 6'10", massive, hand-works. And he used to play professional rugby, so he's really built. Really nice guy, but somewhat overpowering at times. We sat down opposite him and he said, okay, I'd just like to know about this Twitter thing that you've done. And we said, well, we launched it, it's going really well, sitting there all happily. And he said, oh, okay, and whose permission did you get? We said, well, we put it through risk and legal, and they said that was kind of okay. And I said, did they understand it? I don't think they did, but they said okay, so we're okay. And he called in the chief operating officer, and he said, look, this is your domain. Did you give them permission to do this? And at this point, me, who was in, bouncing all happy, smiling, happy little ticker person, I'm now doing the video hiding under the desk, slipping down. And he said, look, if you'd gone through the proper channels, this probably wouldn't have happened. However, we're really glad it did, because we've got 3,000 followers, or whatever it was at the time, getting the information out there, we're getting the graduates. Why couldn't you just started with that? Why did we have to go through this journey? So, as a result, combination of that and the fact that I was the first person in Australia that was Deloitte network to use Gamma, which became our internal social media platform of choice. And because we didn't have one, I decided we probably ought to have an admin on that, so I claimed that. Kind of through a combination of these things, I became part of the social media steering committee, and it grew up around the fact that we needed something. So, social media, so what? Social media has made a massive difference to Deloitte, and it shouldn't really. It's a professional services firm. It's not the sort of thing that you'd expect. But I thought I'd just start with just a quick lay of the land, where we are in the social media space in Australia. And I want to focus just on Australia, because if we go global, things change very dramatically. So we've got Facebook with about almost 12 million users, YouTube, which is a social platform, giving commentary and the amount of uploads and that sort of thing. 11 million users. Google Plus, down here at 340 users, was the next big thing from Google, their next attempt to become social. Worldwide is growing rapidly. It will explode in Australia in the very near future, partly because they've got an incredibly good, exciting, augmented reality game that ties in to Google Plus really nicely. It's driving a lot of usage. It's called Ingress, and it's really, really geeky and lots of fun. Collect people's mind units by playing with portals, and there's 2 teams. But I thought there's the lay line. If we start looking globally, if you look at somewhere like China, Facebook's actually banned. So they don't have the same landscape that we do. They have 51.com, Renren, and 2 other big platforms that actually have the same amount of users, if not more, than Facebook and YouTube. It's massive. The social platform, you'll see as the handout comes around, the social platform, the amount of people that are actually getting on and being involved in one network, or more likely more than one network, is just vast. Facebook users are declining in Australia. People are moving away. They don't necessarily feel the love for Facebook that they did 2 years ago, but it's still a huge player and probably the big player. So when I got asked to talk about this, I thought I'd better do a bit of research into the banking industry and what's going on with social, because I didn't know a great deal about it in particular. So I paid a visit to the NAB Social Media Command Centre, run by Roger Sew down at NAB. And what they're doing down there is great. It's really, really interesting. The thing with social media, obviously, we all know, one person says something, and you get a bunch of people who chime in on the conversation. It may be that they agree, it may be that they disagree, but suddenly a brand can be picked up and be all over the place in no time at all. And we see brands running the gauntlet of it, things like the Qantas luxury scandal. Suddenly what starts off as a small marketing exercise ends up as a massive disaster in the social media space. Roger and the team down at NAB are doing excellent things, as I said. What they've done, they've set up a physical space, which is really important for a number of reasons, and I'll come back to that. But what they do is they've taken an off-the-shelf monitoring product, and they've used it really well. They've split it out into 4 or 5 big screens around the room, and they've got lighting so that as the sentiment analysis changes, the lights around the room change. So if things go bad, it goes red. It's really cool. Well, probably not really cool for NAB, but it's really cool from a sort of a visual perspective. When everything's going well, it's all green, everyone's happy. And they're monitoring the customers, and they're talking. What they do, they pick out from Twitter in particular the biggest influencers, people that are talking about them that have large amounts of followers, people who can actually change the way other people think. They also monitor their various brands, the credit cards, the loans, all that sort of stuff. And they measure the competitors as well, see who's talking about who in what space. So really there's a pulse for it. And from that room, Roger actually he controls, he's pulling strings across the whole network. As an example, they had one of the lights started going red, and there was a lot of negative, started a bubble of negative commentary because someone had shared a photo. They'd gone into a branch at 1 o'clock on a Thursday, I think it was, and taken a photo of the fact that there was only 2 tellers. So how can this be? It's ridiculous. Queues out the door, only 2 tellers. What's going on? Roger picks up the phone, calls the branch manager. You're lighting up my screens like a Christmas tree. Come on, sort this out. If you have to address this now. They were able to actually address it through Twitter, through the medium, and say, okay, the branch manager can come out and talk about, to apologise to the people in the branch and say this is the reason. But they diffuse the situation online, and they start creating the advocates. So much of Michael's speech beforehand was so bang on the money, I almost just wanted to get up here and say what he said. Creating those client advocates, it's vital to the future of business, and that's across the board. If you can get people who are willing to be your advocates, you don't need to spend marketing dollars to get them to talk about their experience. They're there. When something happens, say, because they've created a great experience for the customer who took the photo, who was happy with that experience, the branch manager came out, addressed them directly, that sort of thing. That change in experience creates an advocate. Next time a problem happens, that person's going to jump in and defend NAB. They don't need to get involved. It's a changing world. People, as Michael said, we've got campaigns like the Qantas campaign at the moment, we fly for you. You're the reason we fly. People are starting to listen to this and believe it. The customer-centric view that everyone's taking. People are starting to say, yes, we are the centre of the universe, and we want everything we want, when we want it, in the way we want it. Looking at social media inside and out. Creating a monitoring situation, listening to what's going on externally, huge benefits. Huge benefits down to the productivity. The number of phone calls coming into the centres are reduced. $3 a call, I think is the standard rate for a call out in the call centre. Every call you reduce through the use of social media directly impacts the bottom line. Internally, it's even more interesting. So, I know at CBA and Deloitte putting in Chatter. It's always put in Chatter, which is, it's the same as Yammer, it's an internal enterprise-wide social network. I like to refer to them as Twitter and straitjacket. It's a segmented, safe space. It's only people you invite into it can be there. And they're rolling this out across all their branches. What they're doing is they're creating the potential. I don't know that they're there yet. I don't know that anyone, we're not, at Deloitte, we've been using this for our enterprise social network for 5 years. We haven't quite got to the point where we need to be yet. But what we're starting to create is a human-centered, customer, person-informed knowledge library. Now, it's the standard knowledge libraries that we have, and the way that we manage knowledge at the moment is very dry. People tend not to access it unless they're looking for something directly. If they don't find what they're looking for, then move on. Social network-informed knowledge base is actually going to start changing the way that people do that. People want to interact with it, they keep documents alive, they keep the conversation alive, which you can find an interesting way to actually get the information out. Our attempt internally was to hook up our enterprise search engine to it. So if someone goes onto the internet and searches for something, they get the people's comments floating up if it relates to their search. And that's good, it works. What we're doing though, by using these internal spaces, creating internal networks, is a number of things. First of all, you're getting people comfortable with using social tools. So I know that NAB and their command centre, there's a 3 month, say a month's trial period where or a learning period before you can address the customer. In order to be an operator within that environment, you need to be upskilled properly. In Deloitte, we have now 5 or 6 different Twitter handles, various Facebook pages, various YouTube feeds, and for the most part, they're run by brand people or people who are experts in their industry, blogs, that sort of thing. Occasionally, we turn it, give the matches to the kids, as it were, and give grads access to the Facebook page, and they take over for a week, and it's interesting to see the real experiences being uploaded, their opinions, that sort of thing. And actually the majority of the content on our YouTube channel is user-generated to create that sort of honesty. But it's only really been enabled because we had the safe space internally. A space where you aren't open to the world, you aren't open to prying eyes. And it's been accepted and encouraged, bottom up and top down. So as I mentioned, Guillaume Slug is our CEO, it's a very imposing man. He actually created an incredibly safe space in our Yammer network very early on. He joined on April 1st, which I thought was a mistake personally, because most of the people on there just didn't believe it was him, someone messing around with the network. But he said, and basically there was a post early, it was active for 3 days, and someone posted, one of our managers posted, "That's it for me for the evening. My daughter wants to use the laptop. Shh, don't tell Deloitte." To which Ian responds with, "I won't." Now this sort of created a safe space. It's okay to joke, it's okay to be a person, it's okay to be human. And people were more comfortable using the network as a result. The other thing he does that's incredibly important is that he actually reads and responds. So every day, every other day when he gets too busy, he'll sit down with the feed and read the entire public feed. And things that are interesting, that are going to make a difference to people, he actually responds. He calls them out and says, this is great, thank you for sharing. He shares information back in, he's active on Twitter. So he sort of understands that social is the space and where we're going. What that does is it, again, creates a safe space, but it creates an interesting culture. We've now got a group of graduates who are actively trying to post the most interesting but edgy post in order to get a response from the CEO. So the knowledge bank of information is increasing, and it's edgy stuff that people want to know. And for us, it's a knowledge industry, so it's really interesting to get the latest interesting stuff, and it's making a massive difference. In fact, when we look at social media, whether it's internal or it's external, it really doesn't matter. There's a whole load of rules that people put up. You know, that I've seen recently that 30 rules of posting to Facebook as a company, brand managers, top 10 tips. It comes down to interesting again. With people, we understand the risks generally of posting information. So I'm going to leave that to the side because there is always a bit of a risk problem. But I think it's okay to push. Most of the time, just my IRIS team hates me personally. But it always comes down to two things: interest and engagement. If information is passed to you that you find interesting, it's more likely that you will share that. If you do choose to share that and keep the knowledge moving, it's more likely that other people will share it. It's very, very simple. Engagement is even easier, actually. It's looking at the space that you're in, and this is the one big success factor for social media. Looking at the space that you're in, the financial industry, and saying, okay, who are the other players? Who are the people that are already talking about this? I'm going to interact with them and engage with them. I'm going to bring to the table interesting information. If you bring to the table dry information, people aren't going to share it. They may because it's important, it's regulatory, what have you, but for the most part, it doesn't tend to go anywhere. But if you engage with people that are in the space and then one step adjacent either side or around, that's when you start building up the loyal fan base, as it were. These client advocates, people that are going to actually help you get the message across and create the successes for you. Highly recommend starting internally and pushing it out. Out of interest, how many people actually have corporate Twitter or Facebook accounts at the moment? It's most of you. How many people have Google Plus accounts? Hey, that never happens. It's really nice to see. And how many people have an internal social network? Excellent. I don't even need to say to you guys. You're all there. I want to talk a bit about the future of social and where it's going. So I think that the next big step that we're going to see in the social space is the concept I call the social layer. It's the way that network, one of the beauties of social space is that everything is data-driven, so it's all measurable and trackable. This is a slide image from one of the ways I measure our internal network, where you can see who's actually talking to who. I use that to measure engagement between service lines and ensure that people are actually sharing information nicely, as well as to measure how well they're using it based on the numbers of people. It's a very simple thing just to measure it, really. It's another step to take it further and say, okay, I'm going to do something with that. But that's only one tiny layer in the social space. You've got the people space at the bottom, you've got the layering of the monitoring and the paying attention and adding bits of information where they need to be. But what's more interesting is when the social layers start to overlap with each other. So you've got people who only use Facebook, you've got people who only use Google+, you've got people who only use LinkedIn. A lot of people have more than one, but they usually predominantly use one rather than the others. I have a presence pretty much everywhere across the internet, but I won't play on Facebook because every time I open it it's just full of people I know. I can't stand it anymore. Twitter's great. It's talking to people I don't know and finding interesting information. The layering aspect comes when you start looking at how to use these tools beyond, well, almost as tools, and where you can overlap them. So I've got a colleague who, whenever he gets a new piece of work, he takes his Twitter stream and he culls it. He keeps the 100-odd people that he knows are always feeding really interesting information to him on a personal level into his stream. He gets rid of the rest of it, does a search and finds the top 500 people in the world on Twitter who are posting information about whatever that topic is. He then uses it extensively as an information network for a week, two, however long he's on the engagement, whether you client or what have you, at which point he'll call back and start the next one. So it's really rapid information, it's the latest information, and it's that kind of layering and use of knowledge that makes a massive difference to him. Moving on, trust is the one most important thing in a social space. You get that. You know, if you're honest with the way you talk, you're passing out interesting information, you're being real, you'll start gaining trust. But trust is what's going to drive the next wave completely. Has everyone heard of Good Return? I've got Kiva. It's peer-to-peer lending. So it's basically the Good Return is the Australian version of Kiva. What they do is they find people in Africa, India, Pakistan who are in need of a handout, and they provide a microloan, which is provided as a peer-to-peer service. So anyone can go and provide a loan. They're only small amounts, $10, $15, to help someone set up their business in Pakistan. So the rate of return on these loans is almost 100% of the repayment. People trusting people. Green ID, which is a Deloitte product, and that's the sales that I have to do. Green ID is a 100-point check online verification system. In 3 minutes, you can actually verify someone using a 100-point check, completely digital. Adds a level of trust and security. Society One is again a peer-to-peer lender, but what they're doing is they've taken it a step different. Someone applies for a loan, might be $20,000. What Society One does is they then put them up directly to investors. So they're sort of stepping out most of the middle process. Investor linked directly to the person looking for the loan. They use Green ID to help run through the verification. But what they're doing is they're building up trust. They're building up trust in these networks. I'm absolutely convinced that the next big thing in the social space will come once people are able to trust exactly who they are. At the moment, take my Twitter for example, I'm at Wittering. It's a joke name that was given to me a long time ago by someone, and I've stuck with it, basically. So online, that is who I am. People say, why don't you change to Simon Townsend? I said, well, someone's already done that in Australia and been very successful with it. And, I can't really get away with it, but I am this virtual person at Wittering. People can't tie that necessarily to me. They can when they meet me, I can show them. But if there was a way that I could prove who I am to people online in a network situation, that becomes a lot more interesting. When I asked my son, I've got twins, 8-year-old twins, boy and girl, and then the little girl was the other daddy's arm, and do nothing wrong. But I asked my son a couple of weeks ago, what is it the bank does? And the reason I did this is that design and experience is making a huge sweeping change across the world. It's always been bubbling away, but people are starting to pay attention now. I think Apple is one of the biggest drawcards of that, or the reasons behind that. People are starting to expect the Apple experience in everything they do. That simplicity of use, the beauty of product, they want that in everything. So I said, and one of the tenets of really good design is that you go back to the base roots. What are the fundamentals of a product? And I find one of the best ways to do that. As an innovation manager, I often tell people, think like a child. Go back, try and clear out everything you've learned and just look at it with fresh eyes, but it's so much easier actually just to go to a child and ask them. So I asked my son, what's a bank for? And he said that they're for security and convenience. Well, he did, actually. He said it's so people don't rob you, and so you don't have money lying around the house. But he meant security and convenience. These two things are, I think, fundamentally at the heart of what a bank does. I think he's right. What happens when we layer that with a network? Now, I see this very much as the next big thing. Any bank or financial industry who actually picks this up and runs with it, I think could go crazy. A bank does provide security. People trust banks. They may not like them, but they trust them. If you say something's got bank-grade security, people, so all you need to do is say bank-grade security. People throw their money at it. You know, it's that ingrained in humanity that banking is safe. There's a small startup company in Sydney at the moment called PYW that are looking to completely disrupt the banking industry through peer-to-peer payments. I don't think they're quite going to get there because the name's not right. It doesn't engender trust. It doesn't engender security. But I think the theory they've got is right. Peer-to-peer payments within a network. I was speaking to Patrick just before I came up actually, and she was telling me a story about when she was at the supermarket at checkout. Got a phone, has another wallet. Young kids, wallets in the car. This has all become very difficult. It's a nasty situation. I don't want to be in that situation. No one does. To be able to pull out your phone and use near-field communication, pay for it, that's great. And I think that's the very next step. The more interesting step is the step beyond that, where I've got my phone, I don't actually have enough funds. What do I do? Well, peer-to-peer, I can put out a call to anyone in the supermarket at the time, because I've got a geolocation network based on my phone, my smartphone, and I can say, I just need to cover the 3 kids, trolley full of food, $250 worth of shopping that I bought. My wallet is in the car. I can make a payment or I can transfer a payment, what have you. People would look at it in the supermarket and say, yeah, no, I'll share $2. I'll jump into, I've been in that situation, he'd have 10. And you can get a networked funding model. It can instantly be paid back once you reach the card, once you get to your payment system. Or it can just be transferred from somewhere else. But the idea of people moving money very quickly peer-to-peer through a network that's almost ad hoc, and this comes back to the layering. Networks are going to be moving faster and faster, and the speed of social, we haven't even seen the network effect really take hold yet. NBN coming through, everyone's smartphones. Michael was right again. The amount of people connected to the internet at the moment in Australia is less than the number of devices attached to the network. That's going to go crazy. All of this information and data is allowing people to create networks at the moment that they need it. That's the next big step I see. And you know, we see it already, people specialising in networks. At the moment it's, I don't know, I want to go on to Facebook and join a group because I enjoy wearing fishing waders and riding a goat. And there'll be a group for that on Facebook, and those people will probably welcome me, but more likely they will say, actually, what kind of goat is it? The specialisation is getting to the point where it's almost silly. These networks that are going to be the ad hoc networks, the ones that are actually just created at the moment of need around finances, are going to be the really interesting ones. And they'll be across the borders. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you are. In fact, it needn't be anyone in the supermarket. It could be a bunch of mothers in the same situation who have just been in the same situation in their supermarket in the US, in China, in Pakistan. It doesn't make a difference. So, my theory being, the next massive step is to create a safe network where people are identified as they walk in. We know who they are. They've provided the 100-point test. They can set their own limits on how they want to share their money. It's their money. You know. But the bank is the one that's actually creating the secure space around it. I think that within those networks you'll find people clumping their money together to make investments in the stock market, to make home loans to other people. That, I think, is the next step in social media in banking.